All right, welcome back to another episode of Nostalgia Street, where we share the stories that shape us. That's probably the best intro I've done.
Practice makes perfect.
Our special guest today is Brienne, the only Brienne I know. We'll find out if you know who she is if you hear her voice. By the way, if you are listening to this on podcasting, give yourself a break and watch it on YouTube under the Forefront Studios YouTube channel. Podcasting. Let's see, this would be episode 20. Are we up to 30 yet? We're close to 30. We're close to 30. All right. Let's shut up and Vince, what's your story, your question for Brienne?
My story starts in we'll stop it. So our special guest today is a fan of game shows. So our question for Brienne today is, you are now the host of your own game show. Which game show are you either co-opting or reviving from the past? And you get to pick, I don't know, let's say 3 contestants.
Oh.
What's your game show and who are the contestants?
Well, the game show that comes immediately to mind, and I probably put this in my submission, but Press Your Luck is my favorite. And not because, not so much about the nostalgia is there. They've never changed the design of the whammy, and all of the sound effects are the same, which is amazing. And I kind of want that as my ringtone, but I think that'd be super annoying. But Elizabeth Banks is the new host. So they have revived this show, and she is phenomenal. She's breathed new life into the show, and now they have a bonus round at the end where one of the 3 contestants gets to go, and they get they have customized prizes that they win. So you get to learn about their life a little bit, what makes them tick, and you are so emotionally invested in this person's success that it's just captivating to watch. It's a freaking game show, and I'm like, it's the best game show on TV. So when Elizabeth retires, I want to be the host of that show. And my first little bout at this, so my daughter Pearl wants to be a whammy for Halloween.
That's amazing.
Which I don't know if anybody will even know what the heck we are when we're walking around, but she's like, Mommy, you're going to be the host.
Oh,
so
cute.
I'm going to dress up as Elizabeth Banks, and I already ordered Press Your Luck earrings. I should have worn them today.
Dang.
I ordered them on eBay because that's the only place I could find them, but I'm obsessed with that show. And as far as the 3 contestants,
Real or fictional,
I'm thinking of real people that deserve the world, Probably you, Vince. I love you.
I don't even know what the show is.
It's so the show, the premise of the show is it's a game of chance. So you have a plunger that you have to hit.
Okay.
And then there's this board, this big square board where there are all these prizes and dollar amounts on the board, but also whammies. So if you get a whammy, you lose all of the money that you've banked.
Oh.
And if you get 4 whammies, you're out of the game altogether. Wow. So it's a lot of chance and risk, but then it's getting to that second round. So after the first round is over, whoever has the most money at the end wins. And then they go to this bonus round where their family's sitting there and they're cheering them on. And you just hear a little bit more about their stories and where they've been, how hard they've worked in their lives, why they deserve the car or the trip or, whatever it is.
Except my family would be like, you should have stayed in school.
That's why it would be funny though. You would be a great contestant because you're hilarious, and I can about imagine having your brother and your mom sitting there and just having them razz you a little bit. That would be phenomenal. I would love to host you someday when I am host of Press Your Luck.
Okay, that'd be awesome. That'd be an honor.
What station is this on? How do we watch this?
I think it's on ABC now. It's syndicated, and you can watch it on Hulu. So we actually we watch reruns all the time. And it's on Game Show Network as well. So they circle through the...
Put a link in the show notes.
It's so good. I'm not kidding you. It's
we'll ask for an affiliate sponsorship.
Yeah, let's do that. I like that. Nostalgia Street invites you on a retro ride that's more than just a trip down memory lane.
Uncover life lessons and personal growth stories that stem from our collective past.
So you can live a richer, more connected life today.
Whether you're a 90s kid, an 80s teen, or simply young at heart, you'll find something to relate to in each episode.
Now, here are your hosts, Vince and Jeff. Well, our guest today is Brienne Maner is Maner, correct?
Yep.
Okay. A lot of people say Maner.
They say Manor. and the first name is usually the problem. Actually,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
Brianna, it's Brienne, it's Brian.
Yeah,
I've had
yeah.
Brian because of
Brian.
the tone of my voice. People
Yeah.
think I'm a dude sometimes, which is fine. It's cool. But yeah, Brienne Maner,
Maner.
and then it's like good stuff. Maynard is how I describe
All right,
the
I like
last
that.
name.
Good stuff, Maynard. So Brienne is the president of Startup Sioux Falls, which is in its second year downtown.
We are.
Second year.
Yep.
Sweet.
Just surpassed that first year of operation.
Sweet. So we'll get to talk about all of that. But let's jump in our Bill and Ted time machine and let's go back in time. And where did you grow up?
I grew up, so I was born in Minot, North Dakota.
Whoa,
Yep.
cold.
Yeah,
Right?
I'm so glad I don't live there anymore. But so my dad worked for Burlington Northern Santa Fe, and so he got laid off of the railroad when I was 2 years old in Minot. So my family packed up and moved to Sioux City, Iowa, and my dad worked for Morels there. My brother was born in Sioux City, and we always give him crap for that. So up until third grade, I lived in Sioux City, and then my dad got back on the railroad in Sioux Falls. So I lived in Sioux Falls from third grade all the way through high school, graduated from Washington High School in Sioux Falls, and yeah. This was home, but I feel like I missed those early years a little bit, so I didn't like form my friendships right away. So there was like these packs of girls that were already like, together. So that was kind of hard. I just remember that being kind of a transition for me, but I found my way.
Did you have a part of town where you formed your own gang? We found out yesterday.
East Side.
You and Nate Salinga.
Yeah.
Oh.
Hilltop. He was part of the Hilltop, gang.
Okay.
He was flashing the East Side sign yesterday.
East Side. I love the East Side. Yep.
So did you have any brothers or sisters growing up?
One brother, his name is Brooks. We're about 5.5 years apart. So I feel like we're like almost like only children in some ways,
Yeah.
where we both got attention because I was the only girl, he's the only boy, and we got into a lot of trouble together in our
boy.
early
This is gonna be a
years.
fun
And this
episode.
is me, like being the big sister and the
Brooks,
antagonist.
it sounds like he's very wealthy.
Brooks.
Anybody whose name is Brooks.
Well, the
So-
Brooks brothers.
So
That's true.
he was named after a third baseman, Brooks Robinson.
Okay.
So baseball family over here. My dad played ball. My brother played ball. So I think there was like a little bit of pressure on him a little bit to
Yeah.
have that kind of namesake. But he played amateur ball up until a few years ago. And yeah, so that's where his name came from and also they wanted two B's, Brooks and Brienne.
sure.
Isn't that cute?
Did you have a namesake?
No. But here's the like backstory. My parents' names are Dick and Jane.
Wow.
So everybody gave them crap for these like basic names that
Yeah.
they had. So I think they got creative with us. People have asked me if my name is French because it's ENNE.
Oh, yeah,
And I
yeah.
said, no, my mom just really liked watching TV back in the day. And there was a television show named Chips
Yes.
with Eric Estrada.
Yes, yes.
And one of the actors' names was Brienne Leary. So my mom said, I really like Brienne, but I want to change the A to an E, which is where Brienne came from.
Brienne Leary, I got to think about that. Yeah, because I watched that show a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
California Highway Patrol.
No, I'm just thinking as you drive to like Deadwood, Sturgis, there's a billboard, Fun with Dick and Jane.
Yep. There's a yeah. I know what store you're talking about. Dick and
Billboard.
Jane
I haven't been in the store. I've
Dick
just
and
seen the
Jane's
billboard.
Naughty Spot is the name of the store.
I've only seen the billboard.
I've been in the store because I was morbidly curious, and I'm like, also, it's my mom and dad, and I'm like, oh wait, no, there's nothing in here for Christmas. No,
Maybe Halloween.
maybe Halloween, maybe.
What's the show rated again, Jeff?
Well, it
don't-
changed now. There's that little section on YouTube, you have to designate, is this for kids?
It's
We
only-
always say no.
It's
just
only
in
going to go
case.
downhill from here, guys.
So trouble. What kind of trouble are we talking about?
Well, let's just say I'm glad that we didn't have cell phones back then and things to record. So me and my friends loved to crank call people. That was one of our favorite things to do. So we would pull out the phone book and it would either be like a business name that was silly or a last name. And we would call and, do your standard jokes. But those jokes started to escalate over time.
Can you give us an example? Can you crank call?
We wanna hear the escalated.
Crank call the audience right now.
Yeah. So we called a business. I feel terrible. I'm like the small business person, and here I am talking about crank calling small businesses in Sioux Falls. But it was called Cakes and Things, and I think it was in the Western Mall. And so the first time we called, we were like, what are the things? Just dumb, right? But then I think my cousin was in town, and he's worse than me. And he's like, we should like order something that's like crazy and like see if they'll make it. And I'm like, okay, because there were no repercussions back then. So we got on our telephone and called back, and I think we pretended like we were part of a bachelor party, and we ordered a cake with a certain body part on it.
A baseball bat?
A baseball bat, if you will. And they did it. I never saw the cake, but it was kind of a test of like, oh, we're really good actors too. Like, like they just thought we were, doing something for a friend, and what a waste. Like, I feel bad. Whoever owns cakes and things, if you're listening, I owe you money for that. I'm sorry.
And we
I'm
want
sorry.
a picture of the finished product too.
People do that stuff all the time now. It's
When
like, no
did
big
Star
deal.
69 become a thing?
When someone called us back. So there was another occasion. I was at a friend's house, and we were crank calling, and someone called the number back, and I luckily I answered the phone, and without even thinking, I pretended to be the mom, and I was like, this is unacceptable. I will have a talk with my children. This will never happen again. So we got out of it. But again, it's that we were kind of manipulative. We were sharp. And also, I'm terrified that my daughter's going to pick up these traits. So she will never listen to this episode, one. And I will never tell her that story. So,
Mommy went out of town today, dear.
tee.
She was not at Forefront Studios today recording a podcast.
It was Brian.
Yeah.
I was here.
Yeah, Brian was here.
Brian.
That's exactly right.
That's right.
So I see you have a lot of usual suspects here as your musical groups.
Yeah. I wrote a lot.
Who are your faves?
My faves. If I'm going a little bit further back, I was obsessed with New Kids on the Block. Loved New Kids on the Block. I had the sheets, the button, the big button that you would wear, T-shirts, posters that I would kiss when I went to bed. I love you, Jordan. Have a good night. I probably was weaving narratives that we were dating, and I was delusional and obsessed.
Jordan was the best looking one, right? Brunette.
He was my cup of tea. A lot of people love Joey. So Joey McIntyre.
Oh, yeah.
He was the blonde, blue-eyed.
He was the younger.
Sweet heartthrob. And my guy Jordan, he had a high he could go up a few octaves with his singing voice. But I don't know. There's just something about Jordan for me that did it for me.
Did it? So
a little rat tail.
So
how would you listen to most of your music when you were a kid?
Tapes.
Cassettes.
Yeah.
Oh,
So I started
okay.
with cassette tapes. I had a Walkman, which I still have. I found it in a box.
Wow.
So I'm like, oh, I've got some cassettes I could listen to. But then I do remember the switch over to CDs. And I think my first CD, it might not have been my first, but it's the most memorable, En Vogue Funky Divas. I freaking loved En Vogue. And eventually we took that CD and probably others, and we were shooting CDs from slingshots onto the roof of my house. So that CD, I'm sure they've probably replaced the roof at this point, but it was probably up there for a while.
It's like Breaking Bad with the pizzas, but it's CDs.
Yeah.
So what's your walk-up song?
My walk-up song? Oh, goodness. Well, if it's today, it's a whole different... Is it okay to say, it's not a nostalgic song, it's a new song, but Dessa, do you know who Dessa is? So she's part of the Doomtree Collective in Minneapolis, and she has the song called "The Bullpen." That was part of the Ruth Bader Ginsburg documentary. If you ever saw that, it was the opening song, and it is just the coolest song ever.
I'll have to look that up.
Look it up.
So what would have been your walk-up song?
Yeah.
As what age range are we in right now?
Let's go teenage.
Yeah,
Yeah.
teenage
walk-up song.
Ooh, there's so many jock jams that are rolling through my head.
That term. I forgot about that.
I was on the dance team in high school too, so we did a lot of jock jam stuff. Gosh,
High stepper?
high stepper.
Oh,
I was a high
gosh.
stepper. Yep. Gosh, what's the one I'm thinking of that I can't think of the name of it? There's the Venga Bus. Do you remember that song? The Venga Bus is coming.
I remember the Venga Boys.
Yeah, it's by the Venga Boys. I'm trying to. There's another one that I'm trying to think of, and I can't think of the name of it for the life of me.
Well,
But go to Jock Jams. Pick any Jock Jam. That'll work for
Put that
me.
in the show notes.
Jock champs.
So what were some of the topics in school that you were very good at or
Good
very
at?
bad at?
Good in English. I think I had the opportunity to like go to advanced, and I told them no, I didn't want to. So
No.
not sure if all the I'm a lot more ambitious now maybe than I was back then. But
get my
definitely, definitely English. Where I struggled, I was really good at math up until I got to pre-calc. So I was in pre-calc my sophomore year, and it felt like the biggest failure of my life, where I had to go to the teacher and just say like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't get it. It's a struggle. And this is funny. So and actually, no, it was my junior year. So I went out of pre-calc and I went into this, like, I don't want to call it remedial math class, but like a basic math class called data analysis. And that is where I met my future ex-husband.
Ooh.
So if I
Starter.
would have just applied myself,
Bad data.
I maybe would have not ended up with an ex-husband. No, I'm just kidding.
Data is
But
corrupt.
So I just noticed, and this is probably the only time this will ever happen on this show, we share a teacher,
we do?
I know which one you're
Is it
going to
Mrs.
say.
Britton?
Mrs. Britton.
Oh, Miss Kathy Britton. She's so awesome.
Did she use? She probably took everything that she did at Washington and brought it over to OG.
Oh, I'm sure of
She
it.
always thought about squeezing the dimes.
Squeezing the dime. Oh, yes. I know what you mean now. Yep.
Squeezing the dime for our viewers that aren't initiated is when you need to hit a higher note that you think you're not capable of. Pretend there's a dime between your butt cheeks and squeeze.
Works every time.
It is Colonoscopy Awareness Month, isn't it?
Perfect.
What's I do a Vera campaign?
Yeah, we saw
But
that.
seriously? That was the old one.
Always do the butts.
Oh, fun.
I had a question based off of what you guys were talking about, and then it flew out. Oh, geometry. When did you take geometry?
I don't remember.
Like, that was the worst. I was really good at math until geometry. And I'm like, what the heck?
I think I took that my sophomore year. I would have.
I hated that.
Pythagorean theorem is the only thing I remember.
Yeah. I hated geometry with a
Yeah.
passion.
And there was a dude in my class that I thought was cute, so I really wasn't paying attention. That was the downhill slide for me in math.
Should pull the Mean Girls.
So once you got out of high school days, then what happened after high school?
I went to college with my future ex-husband. I keep talking about him. He's a lovely human being, by the way. We get along famously. But
Good.
so we met. We actually like connected through. I was a newspaper in high school. So I was the Wednesday editor of the weekly News of Washington paper. And that's where I met Ben and Patty for the first time, because I wrote this article about how I hate radio morning shows, and they called the school and talked to the principal, and they're like, why don't you tell her to come on our show?
Oh,
so I
nice.
do have a cassette tape of that recording of me going on their show my junior year of high school.
Talk about a teachable moment right there.
Right? Yes.
Try to convert you, huh?
And it was so fun. Like, they just let me kind of do whatever. I did a shout out to my manager at Hy-Vee and played Man Eater by Hall & Oates. Stuff like that. But anyway, the reason I'm saying that is because I went to St. Cloud State for college, and they have a great mass communications program. And I thought I was going to be a TV anchor. That was what I went up there with the impression that I was going to do. And then I just kind of pivoted over into PR. So go back to like my crank calling days. I'm like, I sure know how to spin a story, right? I can think on my toes. I can give you an answer that is credible and convincing. So I went to school for PR and marketing. And then I ended up in Minneapolis after college. So St. Cloud is like 40 minutes north of the cities. My parents ended up moving to the cities.
Oh, wow.
So I had a place to live, but I ended up working for Sesame Street Live in Minneapolis. That was my first job out of college.
Whoa.
I did not know that.
What does that entail?
Fun fact. Yep. That entailed, so I started as the sales assistant. So I was just pulling all of the sales numbers from all the markets. So Sesame Street Live is the like theatrical Sesame Street show that you would see at like the Denny. It comes to town, I think, every 2 years. So we did North American tours, but we also did international tours. So corporate headquarters was called V Corporation. Vincent E. Egan is the president of that company. Oh, Vinny. So I got to work with him and like just a bunch of women. Like it felt like an extension of college in some ways, where we were all fresh out of college, kind of catty, like to go out a lot. So we're in the city. So that's all we did was like shop and go out. And it was kind of a dream come true in some ways, other than like, I couldn't afford that lifestyle with the salary I was making. But it was fun. I got to move up into a promotion manager position where I did get to manage some markets. So making sure that we had good promotions going in those markets with radio and TV. I'm dating myself here, but I swear to God, you're not. I had to mail in cassette tape dub for the TV spots, so they would add it on to the end of a commercial, and those were still on cassette when I was there, or VHS, I should say.
Yeah.
So learned a lot, and ultimately I was homesick for Sioux Falls, and also again I couldn't afford the lifestyle, so ended up moving back and marrying my ex-husband and making a go of it here in Sioux Falls.
So then where was your first job back when you got back to Sioux Falls?
Technically, it was with a telecom company that I don't even think exists anymore. But my first, after that, was Electric Pulp. So some people might remember this company. It's still active, exists. But it felt like I got to go to geek school or something, tech school, because I was an account manager helping people build websites back in 2004, when websites just really were kind of getting off the ground. People weren't sure if they needed one, what they needed. These guys are so innovative and so forward thinking. It was the coolest job to get. And I found it on the DTSF website. So I was looking for something, I was missing that Minneapolis feel and flavor. So it was the coolest job ever. My first day, Paul is probably sick of me telling this story, but my first day at Electric Pulp was Mayor Paul Tenhaken's last day. So he trained me for a half a day. I took on a lot of his clients. And so we've been following each other in circles ever since, which is kind of fun. I
didn't know that Paul was at Electric Pulp.
Yeah, he's a marketing guy. He's a digital guy.
Because I worked with him at Sioux Valley Sanford.
Yep, and that's where he went after Electric Pulp.
Oh,
and they were a client, so then I was working with him client side on getting all of their websites transferred over to Sanford.
Yeah.
So,
Did not know that.
Yeah. It's a small world.
So how did the town change for you? Because you moved away and you came back. So did you notice a change?
I think when I came back in 2004, it still hadn't grown a ton, other than I was heartened to see these opportunities, these tech companies that were coming online. But I feel like I got to be a part of the growth and the change. That was exciting for me. So I did some stints in marketing, but when I really started to plant my roots in Sioux Falls is when I took over for a nonprofit as marketing director of Sioux Falls Jazz and Blues Society back in 2009. So really understood my role in community development, all of the connections that were made through that event. That was the event back then. We didn't have any other festivals. We didn't have a Levitt Pavilion. So that was the thing. And we had 40 committee members, thousands of volunteers. It was a massive effort, and it took all year to plan. So I really got my chops there. That led me to my job at Downtown Sioux Falls, DTSF, 3 years later. And I just... that's one thing when I really started to understand the depth and scope of how you build a community, how you work together with the community to bolster economic development. And it's just been crazy to watch, and it takes a community. You have to engage your community to build something. And the retailers, the small business community is the lifeblood of that. And that's really what I learned from my time in DTSF and why I'm sitting in this new position at Startup Sioux Falls. It's all about our business community and making sure that they have what they need, because they create an identity. They create the opportunities that make people want to relocate, make people want to plant their roots in a community. We have such a vibrant community of people that make this town unique. So I'm grateful for the journey. And now looking back, I can see why I am where I am now.
Yeah.
It led me here.
We'll be right back.
Yeah, so let's Ready to jump into the startup area, or did you have anything else you
Oh,
wanted
I was
to-
just gonna ask. Now that the statute of limitations has probably passed on some of these, there's got to be some instance in one of these former professional, career jobs that you've been in where there was a sticky situation that you had to finagle out, and maybe there's a lesson to be learned here, because you have already put out there that you are a great spin doctor. Was it
Spin
Sesame
doctors.
Street? Was it?
So what's the question
Oh, sorry.
exactly?
He wants to hear some dirt, I think.
Just basically, has there been a situation in your professional career where you've had to maneuver using your quick wits that may be funny and maybe kind of like something that our audience might learn from? Or a cautionary tale?
You're asking for
Cautionary
corporate
tale.
suicide.
No.
So this was a really good lesson learned for me when I was at Electric Pulp. For a while I was pacing there where I was like, okay, I don't understand a lick about websites, but I can do this. I can sell. And we continued to get a little bit more popular, and someone called in one day. He was an older gentleman, and he had this fishing rod holder that you like connect to a dock. And I was like, why am I talking to this person? Like, he's not a serious client. He's old. Like, I did the like 20-year-old flippant
He's
thing.
calling me.
Yeah, exactly. So like, as I was like getting up to like go to this call or like go meet with the guy, I was saying some like negative, snarky things out the door. And one of my bosses sent me an email while I was gone. And he's like, don't you ever talk about a client like that again. Every single one of our clients matters. You just like, he humbled me basically.
Yeah.
I don't think we do enough of that in today's society. Like, I'm a boss now, and it's hard to be direct. It's hard to tell those hard truths to somebody on your team. But that's how we grow. That's how we learn. So tell me if I'm doing something wrong so I can correct it. And I'll never forget that email to this day. Like it was that like pit in your stomach. Like, I immediately apologized when I came back. And I think I even saw, because I had this cool device even back in 2004, so I could see the email when I got to the appointment, but it kind of changed my tone with that client as well, where no one's beneath us, and we should treat everybody with the same amount of respect. So I appreciated that.
Back in the restaurant days, I had a similar story. We had a group of servers. It was a slow day, and people, instead of getting stations, we just had them rotate as people would walk in. And so a gentleman walked in with a flannel shirt. Looked like he had, it wasn't that he had a beard, but like he hadn't shaven for a few days.
Yeah.
And they were fighting with each other about who was going to take him. And I, similar to this, I said, don't judge a book by its cover. This guy, it's just like, the customer. Anyway, whoever took him, he had a really great experience with them and left a $100 tip.
Oh, wow.
And again, this was 20, 25 years ago.
That's a lot of money.
And people are like, oh, how come I thought so poorly about this flannel wearing dude? So yeah, you never know. Yeah. And I guess you can't say who it is, but I'm going to guess that that's that individual probably had a pretty wealthy business, just like a little niche thing, like holding a fishing pole or not.
I don't know.
Okay.
I sold on TV.
Yeah, exactly. He called it, I even remember the name of the company, or the business name was FTC, which is Faith Through Christ.
Okay.
And I think back then, as again, a snarky 20-something, I'm like, oh, Faith Through Christ. Again, like I've grown so much since then. Like, I don't judge anyone who comes in. And yes, there are some that are vampires that suck our time and our energy, and they're not serious, but everyone deserves a fair shake. Like, that's the American dream, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So
I just never fail to be amazed by people's business models. And to you're thinking that is so stupid.
Right, but-
and then in the fishing world, we're like that. There's a small business based in T that sells dog kennels. And they're
Ruffland.
like crushing it. What was it?
Ruffland.
Ruffland. Yeah, they're not
Ruffland.
clients or anything like that. But
Sure.
Vince went to the Pheasant Fest, and he came back and told me, like, so many people, the vendors had their dogs, and almost every one of them had a Ruffland kennel. And they're based here in Sioux Falls area. And you're like, who would have thought?
And pretty soon everybody's going to have a Dakota Adventure supply bag, right?
That's right.
Jeff Hayward killing
That's
it on our team with that. But
pretty
yeah,
cool. Now he's
no,
making
no
knives.
idea. I mean, I shouldn't say no idea is a bad idea, but every idea should be explored.
Yeah.
And so,
Because
be
you never know.
curious, kick it around. It might turn into something. It might
mean-
not. But
Who would have thought that peanut butter and bananas and bacon would work on a sandwich? But Elvis did.
and now he's dead.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah, I know.
Sorry.
Maybe that's what
There's a
caused his
cautionary
death.
tale for you.
You might retract
Well,
that.
thank you for humbling me there. Full circle.
Don't do that. One at a time.
Which part? Yeah. Which part killed him? We'll never know. So startup. That this is. We live in a kind of a unique era where small businesses are just popping out of the woodwork, whether it's on TikTok or wherever. So many people have these crazy ideas, but yet we're more empowered than ever with 3D printers and computers and all of these technology devices that we didn't have, and it's making things take off. So does that make things better for you or worse for you in terms of how do we develop the right ideas?
Real quick, let's level set for our viewers who may not know what Startup Sioux Falls is or does.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Do you know what it is? Just kidding.
But you're the guy that told the story about the Elvis killing sandwich. Should we believe
Yeah,
anything
exactly.
you say?
Here, let me spin it for you.
Thank you.
So simply put, Startup Sioux Falls empowers founders and ignites innovation in the greater Sioux Falls area. What does that mean? Well, our organization has been around for over 20 years. Entrepreneurs have been around longer than that, and the needs and the economy continues to change and evolve, and we have to keep up with today's entrepreneurs. So the organization name has changed 3 times. We just recently relocated from 45,000 square foot facility to a 5,500 square foot facility in downtown Sioux Falls, and we are trying to build a community of entrepreneurs. And the best way to do that, or the best way I know how, is to be where the people are, which is in downtown. We're a lot more visible, we're accessible. This is just the place that everybody wants to be. So we've pivoted out of a incubator model, which we had a lot more office space available at the old location, to more of a co-working model. So we have different memberships available. If you want to work every single day, you can rent a desk or an office, or we have a hot desk membership if you're coming in and out. And then in addition to that, we have programs that support the entire founder's journey, from ideation stage all the way to growth. We are one partner in this large thing that we call the startup ecosystem. So there are a ton of people, resources around us that are doing, like, not the same work, but similar work. So we have to understand the landscape and how best to navigate that for our starters that are overwhelmed.
Yeah.
They don't know where to start. So that's something that we do very well. And then we also have office rentals and an event space available for those in the community that need it. Our members included in that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so let me rephrase the question. With so many ideas and so many models that are out there, what are the steps, maybe, whether it's through co-starters or others, that you feel are really important for people that maybe have ideas, they're listening to the show and they're like, yeah, I kind of got something going on. How do I figure out if this is a good idea or not?
yeah, and I think that's the difference between, so we call them wantrepreneurs before they're actually entrepreneurs.
Right.
A lot of people have ideas.
Yeah.
But the ones that will better succeed are the ones that take the next step. It's taking an incremental step in the right direction. Again, you are one person, you're passionate about that thing that's in your head, and you need to get it out of your head and into reality by working with a community of people, both business professionals and other entrepreneurs, to start bouncing that idea. And the thing that the most important thing that we ask people to do before you get funding, before you think about brick and mortar, any of that stuff, who is your customer and what problem are you trying to solve?
Yeah.
And that's really what the accelerator program does. It takes you through your business basics. Yes, like how do I form an LLC? Those sort of things. But throughout the 10 weeks, you're doing customer discovery to kick it around and talk to individuals that aren't your friends and family to figure out if this thing that you're looking to do is viable, or how do you pivot it into something that would work in the marketplace. So that's number one. So you have to be able to make it a reality to some degree. You can kick it around. You can be a tire kicker. And we have a program for that, which is called Boot Camp, where it's, again, pre-ideation. You can spend a weekend with us and figure out if you want to take the next step. And then eventually, what we also tell people is it can be a side hustle, sure. But if you want to go all in and you want to make real traction and you want to, start generating revenue, you've got to go all in at some point. And we celebrate when people quit their jobs. Sometimes we are afraid for people that quit their jobs where that's not the right thing for them to do. But that's the point of the accelerator too, is to say, should I do this or shouldn't I? And you're saving thousands of dollars, years of your life, trying to figure out if this thing that's been rolling around in your head is something that you should pursue.
Well, that's usually the dividing line on shows like Shark Tank. Where they always say, "Oh, is this? Are you doing this part time or whatever?" And usually that's where they're not going to go too much further because they're not all in. Because we all know once you cut that tie and you're really serious about what you're doing, then you're going to mortgage the house, sell the dog, the child,
sell your kids.
I got to make this work.
Sell a kidney.
What was I going to say to that? The other thing I was going to say to that is being around entrepreneurs has made me better. I don't know that I'll ever actually pursue my own entrepreneurial venture, but I'm better for having been around people that are taking risks. It's making me think innovatively. We as an organization feel like a startup ourselves. We've only been in operation in this new space a little over a year, and we have to continue to think on our feet, make changes as needed, and just continue to ideate with one another to get further ahead. And I think that having a vibrant ecosystem bodes well for the greater business community as a whole. Even if you go back into the public or private sector and work for a corporation, if you've got a little bit of that skill set underneath you, that mindset, that's going to make that company better. So there's more to it than just starting businesses.
Well, here's a fun question then. Did you ever have an idea for a product or service when you were younger that, still lives somewhere?
She was going to start a cake company, I heard.
And not call it Cakes and Things.
Things and cake.
Things and cake.
Things and cake, yeah.
Golly, I'm trying to think. I was a very artsy child. So I would put on little plays in our living room. So I think if I were to have started something, it probably would have been like a dinner theater or something.
That'd be fun.
Back in the day. Yeah.
Well, you've got the play happening over at Startup now, so that gave me some of those
Isn't
vibes.
that fun? So, and my kiddo's got those chops too. She just had her spring concert at her elementary school, and she was selected to be a part of a quartet solo. So she was up there on the mic in front of 100 people at least singing. And I was so proud. I'm like, and also, are we in trouble? I think we have a theater kid. Yikes.
Better that than a hockey kid. Those kids can get really expensive.
I've heard that a locker room after a hockey game is the worst smelling place on the planet.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm glad that I don't have a hockey player.
Inexpensive. Average hockey stick is $300, and you go through at least 10 a year.
Oh my gosh.
And you can think that they can afford deodorant, but
nope.
Not the case.
I don't know how human beings are capable of sweating that much until you see hockey players.
So I don't want to give you a limit, but what do you think are some common mistakes that entrepreneurs make where it's just like, dang it, why didn't they do it this way? If they could have just done this differently, they might be viable.
Yeah, I feel like, and we just did a survey. We surveyed the greater community, and 25% were concerned about sources of funding. And again, you don't need a lot of, depending on what the industry or the business is, you don't need a lot of capital to get started.
Right.
And you should not dilute your company. You should not take any, or give away any equity until you've got a viable product, until you've done the work, again, to know who your customer is. Do you have a business plan? What's your 5-year plan? And again, those are the resources that we try to provide and instill in our starters, because they come and they're like, who can I ask for money? I'm like, well, no, wait. What's your business idea? What are you trying to solve first?
Yeah, I think a lot of folks get this idea that the startups are almost like they have to be like those Silicon Valley fintechs or Shark Tank, where you're asking for deals and you're making percentage trades, when it's like you could be just making I don't know, cupcakes at home, and that's a business.
but also like we do have those folks. We just started a tech cohort of SaaS founders, or software as a service. And they did a pitch night recently, and that was fascinating to hear as well, like some of the feedback where they're trying to be too many things to too many people, and that you need to narrow in on a niche market because it's a noisy industry. And then don't focus so much on the bells and whistles out of the gate where they're talking about AI integration and doing all these things. No, get your process down first and then add bells and whistles to it. So it applies across the board. No matter what industry it is, you have to start small and build from there. But yeah, it's overwhelming.
We'll be right back. Have you ever come across anybody, whether you know personally or part of the startup ecosystem, where I'm going to call it they rebounded? They had a great idea, they came out, it didn't work, they were able to reinvigorate themselves, and then boom, they did it. Have you come across anybody that's done that?
Yes, and not necessarily them like coming back and trying another thing. I'll give it. Dakota Jordan is the person that comes to mind for me. So Dakota was part of our first cohort of co-starters in 2020, the pandemic.
Yeah.
But she had this idea to go full time with her yoga business and had a real rough time, trying to figure out how to make that like financially viable for her. But she's somebody that just takes licks and keeps ticking, like I'm so proud of her for persevering through all of that difficulty. Like her lifestyle is just completely different. She has a full-time job now, but again, I think she was better for having going through that process. I think it made her stronger. It gave her some clarity, and she's a tough cookie.
I was recently talking to a friend that had just kind of folded up their business, and I caught myself. I was telling my wife this. I was angry. I was so angry because I thought that in their situation, as they were describing why things didn't go so well, I thought, you're just making excuses. You should have tried harder.
Yeah.
And I feel bad that this situation for any small business, it's not easy. It's not an easy life at all. And it's nice to know there are resources out there, but I still catch myself just really pulling for the underdog and hopeful that people can make a go of it. And even if it doesn't look great at whatever point, don't give up.
No.
Just try to look at it, reapproach it a different way. And I do totally agree. It's got to come back to what's the problem you're solving. And you can't just go, well, I like to drink Diet Coke, so I'm going to make a Diet Coke sequel. That's really tough.
If you're not listening to your customer, you're dead.
Yeah.
I mean, they did try that. They tried New Coke. Remember that?
Yeah, or Crystal Coke.
Or Crystal Pepsi.
That's kind of a fun topic. So, no, just in general, like you both have broad experience in the marketing world. What are some throwbacks to like really good, memorable like marketing campaigns that you've noticed, or just ones that just flopped like crazy?
For me, it always goes back to that Hershey's Kiss, but the Bells ad, which they have not changed in how many years, and it still gives me the feels every year when it shows up on screen. I still watch TV, obviously, because I watch game shows. But some of those like very classic, simple messages are the ones that continue to resonate. I love it.
I love the ones that just have that emotional appeal. And I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head.
Are you talking about Peter and Folgers? Peter's Home. You remember that?
I don't, but keep talking.
Oh, so it's so Peter is the son, and he's coming home for the holidays, and like it's like early in the morning, so he's like coming in, and then like smells the Folgers, and his parents wake up, and they're just so excited to see their son. But yeah, Peter.
I think like either the Clydesdales, I mean,
Yeah.
Budweiser, those guys who've got a great budget. And then like even Amazon recently, they did a couple of ads that were just really heartfelt.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Those are probably my favorites that I enjoy.
You know what else I love? Low rent local commercials are my favorite, where there's no holds barred. It's chaos. It's I absolutely love it.
So what's an example of one?
I know, I'm trying to think now. Well, the one that like is coming top of mind, which isn't a very good example, Carl's TV.
Oh yeah.
So Carl and his or Elmer Carl, I should say, and his daughter, I don't know how many of these things they kick out, but there's always a new one, and they do something silly, like it's not high budget. There's no frills. It's where Carl's since 1956 come in and buy a fridge. It's awesome. But I wish I could think of another one. But yeah, there's been so many like good, crazy, like.
That's fun.
So what's the future of startup specific to this advent of AI? Do you think that this is going to make or perhaps break because of the over-reliance on AI?
I don't think it's going to break anything. I think it's another tool in the toolbox.
Yeah.
We're using it as an organization. We've been talking a lot about brand voice lately. And how do we all, like when we're posting on social or we're putting out a piece of communication, how do we make sure that we're being consistent with our tone and message? And I think ChatGPT or some other product like that can help us just use a very consistent language. So I'm excited. And we have an AI meetup group that meets in our facility once a month. And these are like AI, that infiltrates almost every single industry. So it's been very interesting to see people come around the table that either have a little bit of experience with it and want to share, or people that are like, I'm afraid of this, but I feel like I need to lean into it. And that goes for, all of our existing industry partners as well. Like I think everyone's still kind of sitting back, like, how do we make this work for our industry? Will it take our jobs? My husband's a copywriter. So it's a good example where he's like, sometimes I feel like I'm standing on a trap door, but these tools have done nothing but make me better and more efficient.
Yeah.
I'm still like, he's talented. Like he knows how to write a headline or write copy like no other. So I said, I think like it's the ones that are talented and that have what it takes will continue to rise up the ranks, but maybe it'll get rid of cut some of the fat, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe this isn't the line of work for you. But I think overall, like we have to lean into technology and innovation. It's so important. AI, but also like cybersecurity is the thing. DSU has done a really good job of standing that up in the community. But again, every industry is affected by cybersecurity, and we have to be vigilant and figure out how to use it to the best of our ability. And also, how can we use these platforms to spin out new businesses? So trying to figure out what are those pillars of our community, and how can we continue to build an ecosystem around these great ideas and concepts? Technology, woo!
So there's a unique enemy that has reared its ugly head in our area, and it's something that I don't think anybody really would have ever guessed that is kind of undercutting business. And of course, I'm talking about daycare.
Oh gosh, I was like, where's he going with this?
I know. I was like, very dramatic.
So that is something that you guys have taken on recently, correct?
We have.
So talk about that.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing more effective than a group of mothers who are angry. So scary stuff. Like, do not screw with moms. So this has come to the forefront over the last. I use the word forefront.
We actually have a jar.
Do you?
We got a jar. $5
Good.
Ding ding.
This is yes. Come to the forefront. Reared its ugly head. However you want to describe it. This has been a crisis in the making for years. Let's be honest. It's just something that we haven't gotten on top of. And part of it is economical, and there's not a lot we can do to fix it until like the federal level gets involved. So I heard a statistic that it's going to take $600 million annually to fix the disparities as far as like what we have to do to make sure that we're paying people what they're worth, and also the cost of goods, right? Like keeping the lights on, food, all of that good stuff. We can't fix that at the local level. We can do what we can. So something that we've learned as an organization, again, we have these tools in our toolbox, this program, Co-Starters. And I have an example with an individual who went through the program, again in 2020, who is a childcare worker. And he did not identify as entrepreneurial. When I met with him, I was looking for childcare for my daughter after the pandemic. That's how I met him. And I said, well, have you thought about this or this? And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm a child care worker. I'm like, you're an entrepreneur. You own your own business. And that just turned a light on in our head that there's just like this disconnect of these people need resources. They're entrepreneurs and they need permission. And also time and space to be able to work on their business he was in the middle of, he's like, well, I'm watching the kids all day. I'm like, but you should be running the business, so I think something that we can do to help, it's not going to fix it, but to provide these childcare workers a space to be able to come in and focus on the business. What are your margins? How are you dealing with X? And also to let them know that they're not alone. Look at how many of you there are. Like there's safety in numbers here. You can rely on each other. They talk a lot about not being able to take time off because there's no one to do their jobs for them. So can we create a community of people where you can reach out to this daycare and they can, you can share employees. Yep. They just haven't been given that opportunity up to this point, and it's no one's fault, but this is our chance to provide some real support for childcare workers, and ultimately this is affecting the bottom line of our economy. Our workforce is affected by it, so we have to figure out ways to support these folks.
Yeah, we were at I think it was with Corey Poor. Shout out to Corey Poor.
Corey Poor.
I think, it was a meeting with Corey, and he was meeting with another daycare owner, and they were talking about different educational programs that were out there. And like, that's one thing I think that I bet that a lot of entrepreneurial daycare operators do is they feel like they might have to recreate the wheel.
Right.
It's like, no, there's resources out there. You just need to get connected with others like you, and they're not necessarily competitors because, good Lord, there's a lot of kids in South Dakota.
There's plenty of work.
So once you find out those programs and the pricing model, if it's going to fit for you, you're way, way ahead instead of trying to reinvent the wheel all the time.
And I will say, like our governor's office has gotten involved. There are COVID funds being deployed right now. So we have grant funding. Several other entities across the state have grant funding to make a difference here. So we are being provided with some support on that state level. Yeah. Federal's a whole other
animal.
I think part of the challenge, not just for childcare entrepreneurs, but just entrepreneurs in general, is we get so stuck in working in our business, the day to day, the grind. We got to make sure that in childcare, all the kids are taken care of, or another business. There's enough food going out, or vice versa. That you don't look to these programs or these resources because you don't think you have the time.
No.
But the reality is you can't afford not to make the time.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a mindset shift. You will make the time. You have to.
Yeah, you have to. Are you ready for your thread question, sir?
Nice.
I guess we could do that.
I guess we could do that.
I'm scared.
No, we're wrapping up our show, Brienne. And,
okay.
The way that we usually wrap up our show is we ask our guests to take a look back in the past as we've been doing this whole show, and find a particular moment, story, a lesson, a quote from whoever, something that you still use to this day, and share it with our audience.
It probably wasn't the only example, but again, when my boss told me, like, you don't talk about your client that way, inclusivity is just such it's like a core value of mine personally. It's a core value of our organization, and I'm proud of the efforts that we've made as a community to become more inclusive. So for me, it's never judging anyone. I grew up with a lot of sarcasm, snark. It was like a product of the 90s to some degree, where like every movie people were just mean. Yeah. They were so mean to each other. And I learned to talk that way, and I had to teach myself how to not be that way. And I feel like I've maybe overcorrected to a point where I'm a little bit too empathetic at times. But ultimately, like, I feel like if there's any silver lining to the evolution of society, I feel like we're kinder in some ways. The social media has made things worse because you can be a keyboard warrior, but there's so many more programs in place. And also, like, social media is there to hold people accountable too. Like, if you're a jerk, you're probably going to hear it somewhere. Yeah. So be kind. Do not judge another human being until you really get to know that person. Every opportunity is valid. Anybody who's coming to us at Startup Sioux Falls, I'm going to listen. I'm going to provide you with the resources. The difference is, like, I'm going to hold you accountable to do the work. But I feel like I'm a better person for having gone through some hard times, especially in my younger years. I was somewhat of a mean girl, I would say, in school. Like, depending on who the kid was, there was that kid that got picked on all the time, and you just become part of the chorus of like bullying to some degree. And so again, I look back at some of those choices that I made as a kid, and like, I wish I could apologize to every single person that I said something that I shouldn't have said to or treated a certain way. And I hope that my kid does better.
This is the third out of the last 4 podcast episodes that we've done. Your concept of what you just described is so similar.
Yeah.
It's just this concept of the need to be kinder to people, and whether they're a competitor or whatever, just be a human being.
Exactly.
It used to be Monopoly was the overriding thing.
We've had a theme of just everyone here is just helping other people become better people.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, thank you for being here today and sharing all that with us, and also for the future invite to your game show.
Absolutely. Press your luck.
I'll be looking at that tonight.
Well, our humble audience and friends, you don't have to press your luck of our show. You can find all the show notes on how to get engaged with the startup community and all of Brienne's details that she cares to share. I already said show notes. Yeah, so show notes. Well, thanks for being here, everybody, and we'll see you next time on Nostalgia Street. Make sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. If you're on iTunes, please take a moment and leave us a rating and review.
Head on over to our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. You'll get access to engaging visuals that complement our podcast content.
Thanks again for tuning in, and we look forward to having you with us on our next episode. So until next time, listeners, stay curious, stay engaged,
And never stop walking down Nostalgia Street.